Today from the BizVision studios in the UK, I'm bringing you a Talking Tech Show special. The exciting thing about being the host of this show, the Talking Tech Show, is meeting entrepreneurial thinkers from around the globe who are probing the way forward to bring you technology that will be better for your personal and business lives. My guest today is one of those people truly at the sharp edge of thinking. His branded product is known around the world, but it's what that brand is bringing you next that we want to talk about today. You know that artificial intelligence is innovating many products, but just how can it help deliver you a high definition picture of your customers? Let's find out as we meet the CEO of SugarCRM. Welcome, Craig Charlton.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, and as always, I just love this eclectic world. You're in Denver, Colorado, you're Australian, and I'm in the UK. Wow, you know.
and my wife's English as well. She's lived in the UK, she's lived in Australia, and now she's living in the US.
Right, yeah.
Very worldly.
We're shrinking the world together, aren't we? Craig,
exactly.
Craig, just in case any of my viewers have been sitting in a cave for the last 100 years and haven't heard of SugarCRM, please tell us what your product is and what it does.
Well, SugarCRM, we actually turned 15 this year. So we had our 15th birthday. We're a Silicon Valley-based provider of sales, marketing, service, and AI solutions. And our remit is to help businesses deliver a high-definition CRM and customer experience. So we have a time-aware CX platform that gives companies the comprehensive data they need to achieve a crystal clear view of their customers and hopefully lead to better business performance and predictability. So in terms of the size of the company, we've got about 5 million users spread across over 120 countries around the world. In your neck of the woods, we've got some very big name customers like Mazars, Tetley. We have a lot of global brands like Star to Star, SMC, Reams, Sennheiser, Tyson Foods. So lots and lots of household names, and we have one of the highest customer retentions and satisfaction rates in the industry. So if you've heard of the concept of Net Promoter Score, our Net Promoter Scores are actually in the 90s, which is almost unheard of for an enterprise software company. And if you look at any of the customer voted surveys like the G2 Crowd, softwarereviews.com, Forbes magazine's most trusted vendors, Sugar's always up in the top of the list. So we're very proud of that, and we're very proud that our customers give us such a high rating. We're very, very grateful.
Yeah, and that Net Promoter is a fantastic score. Now, I suggest, let's just do some layman stuff first, though. I suggest that many companies and people get themselves mixed up between CRM systems and mailing systems. So what to you is the real definition of CRM?
Well, so email marketing, in terms of the mailing component, is one small component of a marketing automation solution. And a marketing automation solution is one small component of the overall CRM or CX system. So CRM systems are all about managing the entire customer lifecycle, from those early touches, which could be email marketing, to the purchasing journey, to the sales, and then after sales and repeat sales. So the whole aim of the CRM system is to automate and optimize as much of that customer lifecycle as possible. So you should provide a view of the customer, the market, and the business with an unprecedented level of clarity. And more recently, you mentioned AI at the start of the program. More recently, vendors like Sugar are actually investing heavily in AI to be able to essentially provide our customers with a crystal ball and with the idea that they can make bankable predictions about the future. So CRM or CX is a much bigger category than just that email marketing piece.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, I said in my opening piece that SugarCRM is probing the boundaries. You developed what you call HDCX. Now, I know that CX part usually stands for customer experience, but what is HDCX?
Well, you probably know it from televisions. It's high definition. So high definition CX is a vision that we're really excited about, and we think companies should be thinking about and talking about. It's all about solving the problems that have plagued CRM and CX systems since their inception. So if you think about CRM systems, they've been around for like 30 years now. Yet for most companies, the customer view is decidedly low resolution. It's incomplete, it's out of date, it's wrong, and it's myopically focused on current state. So, HD is really about providing the fidelity and clarity to provide an understanding of your customers down to that last proverbial pixel, if you think about high definition TV. So the difference between like a standard definition TV and a high definition TV is completely analogous to this concept of traditional CRM versus the CX platform that we've built and we're building. So, HDCX provides a single unified view of customers that spans time from their first marketing engagement. It might have been a mail campaign, right through to future predictions about their needs and their sentiment, and predicting their likely future behavior. So it's about personalizing the customer journey and providing predictions about the future for guidance for your own employees in terms of what do you do next. So predicting the future is one thing, then providing guidance in terms of what's the next best action. So ultimately, HDCX is a view of the customer that we believe drives higher performance, should drive higher revenue, and should enable improved forecasting and improved predictability. So for me, it's a big change in the industry. It's like the fog is lifted, and you see your customers, your business, and your markets clearly for the first time. So that's the concept of HDCX.
Yeah, great. And I've got the follow-on for you already there from HD. It's going to be 4K CX, I think, isn't it? That's what the televisions are selling here now.
Well, I think it's 8K now.
8K, wow. Yes. See, I blink and I'm behind on all this technology, but it is so important in this changed and altered world. Okay, got the definition and some understanding, but give me an example or two of how it would work in a company, say one in B2B and one in B2C.
Well, look, the really big difference is, I suppose, that R in CRM, it's all about relationships. So most B2C or e-commerce CRM use cases are very highly transactional in nature. There's a lot of segmentation of customers, and there's studying in terms of their buying habits in order to make offers which are relevant for them. But in a B2B scenario, you're talking a lot more data points and really building up an entire history of all of the complex relationships with multiple individuals at an account over time. So there are a lot of ways where companies are blending these approaches. So, B2C and B2B used to be very different, but now a lot of companies are taking a combined what we call B2B2C type approach. So you think about the whole concept of account-based marketing, it's the embodiment of this idea. So when we look at accounts, we see accounts not as a business in a B2B context. So it's not one discrete entity, but it's rather a complex network of key individuals that we want to engage with in order to have a meaningful conversation. And so we need to know them. We need to know their needs from both a personal and business standpoint in order to really cut through the noise and then have a meaningful connection. Yeah. So, tons of examples, but if you think about how difficult it's been in the world of B2B or Salesforce automation, just to get a reliable forecast out of a system, mostly that's been exclusively human-driven activity and suffering from personal biases and personality and attitudes. But with this new high-fidelity view of customers and prospects, combining that with the deep learning models of AI and externally curated data sets, accurate forecasting from the system is now very much a reality. So, with the right AI tool, you can provide accurate predictions on a whole range of really important business questions. And even more importantly, so it's one thing to provide answers to questions that people are asking. What I think is more important is provide answers to questions they're not asking, but they should be, because we're looking at this, huge treasure trove of underlying data and highlighting things they need to be aware of before they've become apparent to the human eye. So, it's, I suppose, really exposing the power of AI.
Fascinating. Absolutely. As you say, I've been personally around CRM for over 20 years with brand names will not mention, but you say that SugarCRM will be able to look at data which companies had possibly never thought to gather. So how does that work? Show me the value of it.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if I gave you a crystal ball in business, you would outplay your competitors every time. So our competitors' AI solutions, because a lot of our competitors, not to mention names, are investing heavily in AI as well. But one of the fundamental flaws is they're looking at the information available in your CRM, and if that's all you're looking at, then you've only got access to the information that the company had the foresight to collect.
Yeah, yes.
And it's biased towards the data that the company thought was relevant when they first implemented the CRM, which could have been 10 years ago. So, by contrast, what Sugar does, we deliver exceptionally accurate predictions, even with limited or incomplete CRM data, because we consider all sorts of extraneous factors and extraneous public data that simply just aren't represented in CRM. So Dun & Bradstreet did a fantastic study that said 91% of the data in CRMs is incomplete. And that's across, a very broad study. So what Sugar's AI does is it surfaces answers that CRM data doesn't even cover, and raises questions that customers didn't know to ask. And if you think about what's the sort of data, apart from publicly available information about customers and prospects, there's a multitude of other data sets that you would never think to bring into your CRM, but could have a really big impact on the accuracy of your AI models. You think about weather patterns, GDP, you think about unemployment rates, PMI, you think about stock market performance, you think about currency rates or interest rates. All of these things should be able to be ingested into a model to figure out whether or not that improves accuracy or doesn't improve accuracy. But once again, you would never hold that information in your CRM. So, I think it's a really important difference.
I'm totally with you. I mean, I say 20 odd years ago, we were preaching to people that 60% of their business will come from repeat customers easily, if you get to know those customers. And look, I've always thought that the heart of a good CRM system, though, is knowing the personas of your customers. So show us again how HDCX will add to that persona knowledge.
Well, look, I think you're 100% correct. And I think HDCX can really change the game here, because there are two fundamental challenges for what we see in relation to our competitors. And I've sort of spoken about them, but data quality and completeness, that Dun & Bradstreet study, 70% of your data in your CRM goes bad annually. Yeah. 91% is incomplete. So if you rely on your CRM data only, you're going to end up with suboptimal outcomes. There's nothing surer. But if you go and augment that internal data with extensive company, people, and market information from a whole variety of public sources, you can dramatically improve that level of predictability and that insight into that persona. And the second piece, which is something that's just floored me forever dealing with CRM systems are not time aware. And Sugar is time aware. So we maintain a complete historical record of every single change event in the customer journey. So it provides a finer, more detailed view of the customer. And think of it like using a TV analogy, it's like a DVR. I can rewind history, I can move it forward slowly, but I can also project forward into the future now with AI. So if you solve both of these problems, you solve the persona challenge.
Wow, that's really exciting. Now, there'll be a CEO or MD of my viewers thinking, you've got them thinking now. And by the way, just before we move on to the next question, Craig, I'd just like to remind them on the screen behind me is your URL to take down. So that CEO says, this sounds exactly what we want and where we should be going to. Take me through the workflow of implementing SugarCRM and HDCX into a typical business.
Well, Malcolm, in the interest of time and not boring the audience, I won't go through the whole implementation methodology, but I think there's some really important ingredients for success. The most important one is understand your ideal customer journey intimately before you start the process, because you want to be able to map that into the system. You need to also consider adopting best practice recommendations from the vendor that you're engaging with, and you need to be prepared to consider changing. So, just because we've always done it that way, that's the worst reason to keep doing something.
Yes.
So, and one of the things that I've said for years is people always talk about best practice. Best practice is not a destination. So you don't get there and you pop the champagne corks and say, oh, we've achieved best practice. It's a continuous ongoing journey. And companies that forget that, it's like you snooze, you lose, right? If you stop innovating and you stop improving, then you fall by the wayside. And there's, countless examples in the business community of businesses that have done that. And you need to focus on the perennial issue with CRM systems is adoption. And you got to provide far more carrot than you do stick.
Yes, I got you.
The traditional approach of CRM systems is, they need more stick because they're not adopting the system. They're not using the system. Use it or I will fire you is not a way to motivate staff. Use it because it will make you far more successful. That is a far better approach. And you have to nail that equation of user adoption, or the system will be next to useless. So I think they're some of the key ingredients for success.
Yeah, I got you there. Now, I have to ask you this question. At the heart of the success of SugarCRM is data, or data in the UK, data to you. Today, people
I'm Australian, so I'm stuck between the two. I flip.
Yeah, you say tomato, we say tomato. Yeah, I know. Today, people are more than ever alarmed about data security and intrusion. So how does SugarCRM reassure its customers about the integrity of data usage and its protection? After all, you also have your brand reputation to protect as well, don't you?
Yeah. Look, as my wife says, I wouldn't look good in orange pajamas. So I need to be continually paranoid on behalf of my customers. So, we're obviously, we're SOC 2 compliant. We abide by GDPR. We've got all of the other privacy provisions. But we go far beyond that. We're constantly testing and looking for ways that the bad guys could potentially, penetrate. And the bad guys are getting better all the time. So we have to stay, 2 to 5 steps ahead of them. So we employ some of the brightest brains in the industry to work on this. And we've got a bit of an unfair advantage because we host all of our cloud customers in AWS. And we work, really, really closely behind the scenes with their teams on cutting edge security, redundancy, data protection, and they're the best in the business, and we unashamedly leverage that. So that gives us a head start as well.
Brilliant, and that's very, very reassuring. Now, Craig, final question. I like to give all my guests 3 wishes. If I were to give you 3 wishes for the understanding of the value of CRM within businesses, what would those 3 wishes be?
So I would probably pick the opportunity to have executives evaluating CRM understand 3 critically important concepts. And I would use my 3 wishes that way. Number 1 is predictability in a business is just as important as performance. And in most cases, predictability drives performance. So, there's this been plethora of AI talk and AI engines. An AI prediction engine is only as good as their level of accuracy. And so if you're providing predictions with a low level of accuracy, that's probably damaging to the business because people are relying on this in order to make hopefully bankable predictions about the future. So don't rely solely on your CRM data to drive a prediction engine because it's going to deliver suboptimal outcomes. So that'd be the first thing I'd want them to understand. The second thing is you cannot have an intimate understanding of your customers, your business, or your markets if you don't understand the fidelity of time. Our competitors' CRM systems are fundamentally flawed because they don't understand time. They're really good at telling you the state of the nation now, and then in 5 minutes' time, that's lost. And then in a year's time, it's completely lost. So if you don't understand history, you cannot predict the future with any degree of accuracy. And the third one I'd probably want them to understand, and this is very self-serving for me, vendor brand doesn't deliver value to your organization per se in isolation. So, there are a number of gorillas in the space, in the CRM space, and I've personally been a 3 times victim. I call myself a 3-time burn victim from dealing with one of these vendors. And it was one of the reasons I joined Sugar, because we're fixing the sins of CRM systems that have been around since their inception. And some businesses buy the brand for the perceived safety factor. No one gets fired for buying IBM was the same from, the 80s and 90s. And The interesting thing, which always surprises me, is you cannot deliver a competitive or achieve a competitive advantage if you're doing exactly the same as all of your competitors. I mean, that just seems very common sense. So where buying a brand delivers an ego boost, it doesn't necessarily translate to business value. So I'd encourage them, look for the best vendor to meet your business needs. That may be the gorilla in the space, but equally it may not be. So, don't look at brand as being value per se. The solution is where the value comes from.
Craig Charlton, CEO of SugarCRM. Some brilliant advice you've just given me. Thanks for a great interview.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Malcolm. Great to chat with you.